So just want to show you how to repair cracks in the interior corners, right? I mean, generally, like, you know, even when I made another video about sealing cracks and whatnot, and most of the time the issue is either no tape or the wrong kind of tape. You can probably see the remnants of this fiberglass mesh tape. It's not a very good product. I wouldn't use it. Don't use it on any surface. You can see it better here. Yeah, that's no good. It's not strong enough, and it doesn't embed itself into the plaster properly. So I wouldn't use it. So, you know, I had to sort of dig it out, whatever was really bad, and the top I'd already pre-filled. With corners, with interior corners, it's very important to pre-fill the joint. You know, especially big cracks like this, but you know, even small cracks like that, I would probably pre-fill, just so that then the paper can, when you tape it, the paper can go onto a already smooth surface, and it will, you know, create a straighter joint, straighter corner. So yeah, you've got to pre-fill it, and I always use you know, setting compounds like base coat, that blue bag there, 45mm base coat. Pre-fill it with base coat. Use a trowel that is actually designed for corners. So like this one here, you can see one side of it is at close to right angle, right? So this side here will be used to sort of feather it out and make a reasonably neat corner, and that's what I will do. I'll show you how it goes step by step. Alright, let's fill the cracks and push the plaster nice and deep, just to make sure it goes in, fills the cracks nice and deep, because that's what you want. And then I'm just going to smooth it off, get rid of the excess, and Bob's your uncle, ready for the next coat. But just something I forgot to mention, that when you're applying setting plaster like this, you know, repairing cracks and taping around painted surfaces, then it's quite important to give the adjacent painted surfaces a bit of a rough sand. Yeah, like I used 120 grit sandpaper this time because I didn't have anything rougher, but probably 80 grit would be ideal, and that just ensures good adhesion of the base coat. Yeah. Yeah. So now we're just gonna smooth it off, because there's still 2 more coats to come here, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but just minimise the amount of scraping you're going to have to do. After it dries. Alright, that's good enough. Maybe give it a bit more around here. There's a bit of a crater there. Alright, we'll just let that set for about an hour and then ready for the next coat on the tape. That's hard enough for the second coat. So with this stuff, the setting base coat, you know, you don't have to wait for it to dry before you put this second coat on. You just got to wait for it to set and harden. Yeah, so there's a difference. It's still wet, but it's dry and hard. Not dry. It's still wet, but it's hard, and that's what you want. It's ready for the second coat. And with the second coat in the corners, that's where you put the tape on. And for corners, I mean, I always use nowadays. I always use paper tape for, you know, on walls and joints, ceiling joints. I use fibre fuse tape. Sort of. I'll show you what it looks like. It's some sort of synthetic stuff. It's got these little gaps in between, and it's much stronger than that mesh tape. And the advantage of this over paper tape is that it's a little bit thinner, and also it doesn't is not susceptible to bubbles. But you can't really use it in corners because it doesn't. You can't create a crease with it. You can't bend it in half, and that's what you've got to do with the paper tape. Yeah, I won't be able to show this with one hand, but basically you might be able to see. Yep, you definitely can see. There's that little crease going down all the way along the middle. So you just got to fold the paper in half and all the way along the length, as much length as you need. I mean, measure how long you need, cut it, whatever. But so you bend it in half. You know, first when you bend it, I'm going to put down the camera. Stop this. This is what you got to achieve. So you sort of bend it in half, and then you run your taping knife down it all the way along, just, you know, to make sure that you create a nice and sharp crease in the middle, nice and sharp edge. And then when you open it up, you know, it will have a nice sort of sharp corner. And that's what you want. So and then you know, you mix your plaster and whack the plaster onto the corner, and then push the tape in and squeeze out most of the excess. Don't go too crazy because you do need a bit of plaster underneath the paper just to make sure it bonds. But yeah. I'll show you what it looks like when I put it on. I can't show you how to do it because I don't have a stand for this. This is only my phone. So I've got another corner here which I need to tape up. So there's the paper there, which I've already cut to length and bent in the corner. So, you know, you've got to make sure that you get all the tape ready before you mix your plaster. That way you can minimise the time, and you know you can sort of get quite a few joints done. I think there's another one there, and there will be another one in that corner there. I think that will be it. No, I did say that you got to sand the adjacent painted surfaces. But another thing that you also got to do, which you have to do before either painting or plastering, or even rendering, no matter what you do, you got to clean the surface. Right? Very few plasterers actually do this, and a lot of plastering failure results from it, especially on ceilings. Because there's often repairs on the ceilings due to water damage and whatnot, and you know, when you do a bit of repair and then you do a bit of sanding, you don't clean the dust off, and then you put another coat of plaster on it, and then that won't adhere. Nothing sticks to dust, as you will know. Even primers, the best primers, will struggle against really dusty surfaces. I mean, you know, of course, oil-based primer will penetrate, but you know, you don't often use oil-based primer on ceiling repairs. Most of the time, in interior surfaces especially, we use water-based primers, and they're good, but you know, you got to apply them to a clean surface. And the same is true with plaster. You know, you can't just go on greasy, dusty rubbish, because it will not stick. Eventually it will give way and delaminate. Alright, so it's a bit easier to show you with a small length here that I'm doing. So I've whacked on a bit of material, plaster, and then pushed the tape on, and then you know, you sort of squeeze down on the paper, but make sure that it lines up with the corner. All right, and so that's why pre-filling is so important, because it allows you to create the corner, and then you know, all you got to do is just basically put the tape on, and you know, I've already squeezed out the excess, but you sort of want to fill around the edge of around the end of the tape, just so it's nice and flush. Alright, that should do it. So after this, we'll just scrape off any of the ridges and whatnot, and put a final, like a top coat, which is a different kind of product, like an air drying product, and easy to sand, and that's the idea. So that's how you should tape corners and plasterboard. Interior corners. Oh, internal corner, that's how they call it. Internal, that's an internal corner. That's an external here. Anyway, hope this helps. Have a good day. This is the next day. I've just sanded it down. I like to sand things with the machine, because, I mean, just, you know, prevent too much dust, and faster too. So sanded it, but just want to show you some. I mean, your main concern is going to be with paper tape, bubbles, yeah. But most of the time you will only notice them once you put some paint on. So after priming, you might sort of look around and see if there's anything that's bubbled up. If not, then you're good. But you know, it happens, no matter how good you are, how experienced you are, it will happen every now and then. So don't be ashamed, there's no shame in that. But I want to show you something else. As you sand, you might notice that the paper will get sort of sanded and roughed up, like you see here, and that's pretty bad there, and yeah, around here a bit. Yeah, so that's another thing you shouldn't be too concerned about. Just give it a coat of primer as it is. Don't worry about trying to tidy it up for now. Just give it a coat. Well, once you've sanded it, obviously, like you got to sand it smooth. But after that, you know, don't worry about all the paper that you have roughed up and whatnot. Just give it a coat of primer, and once that primer is dry, let it probably give it a couple of hours, I'd say at least. And after that, if you use a good quality primer, like a fast curing primer, like Smart Prime or something like that, and then you'll be able to give it a light sand, and that should remove all those smooth out all those rough areas on the paper. Yeah, so I'll show you what I mean when I'm doing it. Okay, so this is a joint after obviously I sanded it, and then I gave it a coat of Smart Prime, and well, actually this is a few days later now because the weekend came. I think last video that was on Friday, and now it's Monday morning. So it's just given the primer more time to harden, and so this is certainly a little bit better time to sand off all those rough areas. So as you can see, the rough paper here. So that will be sanded off nicely, and you will not even notice it. I mean, there's a little bit here, but so there's not much really. And I like to use a wet sandpaper, so wet and dry. So just wet the surface a bit, just to minimise the dust, and then this sandpaper can still work even when it's wet and soggy. I might put a little bit of touch-up primer over there if I feel the need, but probably not necessary. And there was absolutely no bubble here at all on the two four corners, and a couple of little bits that I did. I suppose that might just be a little bit of luck, or just just make sure you put enough plaster under the paper there.